What is the best way to inquire about time off during an interview? We always want to know our benefits and time off, but feel like inquiring about that might be inappropriate. This is a wonderful question because it is inappropriate to ask for benefits and time off at the interview. Because when I'm interviewing somebody and I'm telling them about the job, I may or may not even be talking about benefits, but I'm just telling you about the job, and I still have 15 people behind you. If when I say, do you have any questions for me? And your question is, tell me about the benefits and time off, then I'm not interested in you. That's just the bottom line. Now, what you want to say is during the first interview, if they don't talk necessarily about money, if they don't talk about money, if they don't talk about benefits, then you don't bring it up. At the second interview or follow up, then that's the time to bring it up. So at the interview, you interview very well and they offer you the position. Let's say there was no second interview or follow up. Then you can say, I am interested, but I did have a question about, PTO and benefits. At the second interview, if they don't bring it up at that time, you can say it. You can ask that question at that time. But you don't want to ask it at the initial interview. Come up with other questions. Hopefully they will already give you that information. But if that's the only thing that you go and asking about, that would be a turnoff to the person interviewing you. Should I let an interviewer know ahead of time that I need to bring my service animal with me to the interview? So, good question. That's a good question. I don't think I've ever been asked that question. So that is a good question. Should I let an interviewer know ahead of time that I need to bring my service animal with me to the interview? So personally, I would say yes. You need to let them know because some people are afraid of dogs if your service animal is a dog. So some people are afraid of dogs. And although when you come in and it's clear that it's a service animal, they still may be terrified. Literally, some people are terrified to even be in the same room with them. So or they could be allergic. So to kind of give them a heads up so they can prepare themselves. Because if they're scared of dogs, maybe somebody, the HR assistant, maybe she would be better at interviewing. Or if they're allergic, they can make sure they take their allergy medicine ahead of time before the interview. So yes, I think you should let the interviewer know ahead of time that you may need to bring your service animal with you to the interview. Suppose you don't see eye to eye with your supervisor on how to deal with a problem. How would you handle the situation? A lot of people don't know what to say to that question because, the supervisor's not always right, despite what supervisors think. They don't know everything. They're not always right. And how they want to deal with a problem may not be the best solution at all. What you want to say to that question is, and again, the question is, suppose you don't see eye to eye with your supervisor on how to deal with the problem. How would you handle the situation? Hopefully you have a good enough relationship with the supervisor that you can talk to them. You would say, I see how you want to deal with the problem. I do think it can work that way, but I also think it can work this way. So you want to give them your solution and then let them pick if they're the supervisor, and give them the opportunity to say, do you think my way would be better? Can we try my way? Supervisor may think your idea is great. Just today, I was having a meeting with someone and they came up with the opposite idea of what I thought. And it was a much better idea. And I could have said nope because I like my way better. But that's not what good supervisors do. They listen, and if the answer to the problem is better, they take that person's suggestion. I let the interviewer know about my disability before the interview. These are some good questions today. So the answer to that, because you don't want people to discriminate against you. Depending on what the disability is, if they need to know, it's on a need to know basis. If you're bringing an interpreter or you need an interpreter, then yes, you need to let them know. If ADHD, they don't need to know that before you get to the interview. They don't need to know that at the interview. They need to know, can you do the job? But if it's something that the employer that the person interviewing you needs to make sure they have an accommodation for you, then yes, they need to know that. So outside of that, they do not need to know before you come to the interview. The one question you should always ask at an interview is, when do you plan to make a decision? That is when you follow up that next day. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't send a thank you letter before then. So if I'm interviewing you and, thank you. And I'll say, do you have any questions for me? And you'll say, yes. When do you plan to make a decision? And I'll say, I plan to make a decision on December 24th. So if you don't hear from me by December 20th, so that's the answer. So in your mind, if you don't hear from me by December 24th, on December 25th, if these weren't holidays, then you will follow up with me. Are you required to let the person interviewing you know you are pregnant? So you are not required to let them know. If you are showing, they will know. The question is, the answer to all the questions is, can you do the job with or without accommodations? They may ask you, can you lift 25 pounds? If you're so many months pregnant, the answer may be no. So you're not required to share that information. You can. Now, as an HR person, I would want to know that. I would want to know that you're pregnant. But you are not required to tell me that when we're interviewing. When I offer you the position, you can tell me at that time. But you're not required to tell me at the interview you are pregnant. Nor should I ask you, or the interviewer, because if I'm not interviewing, nor should the interviewer ask you. How do I handle an interviewer who wants to talk about topics that are not related to the interview? How do I handle an interviewer who wants to talk about topics that are not related to the interview? A lot of times in the interview, the interviewer is trying to get to know you. Now, in truth, they should stick to the topic as much as possible, the interview topic, and not fade off. But there may be times where we can talk about the weather, we can talk about sports, so there may be times where they go off track. As long as they're not asking you any discriminatory questions, then it's okay, or any questions that make you uncomfortable, then it's okay, because they're trying to really get a feel for you. So if you came into my office and you saw one of the books that I'm reading, and you've also read that book, and you make the comment, I've read that book, I may say, really? What did you think about it? I may also say, have you read any of the other books that he wrote? That's off topic. That has nothing to do with the interview. But I may ask you, because that's kind of how the conversation's going. So it just depends on the topic. As long as it's not making you feel uncomfortable, they shouldn't be asking any questions that can discriminate against you or make you feel uncomfortable. I think to let the person interview know you're pregnant, and if you do, will they not want to hire you? So the question, I think it was three parts. I kind of broke it up. If you let the person know that you're hiring, so this she's saying, if you let them know, will they not want to hire you? So honestly, I'm trying to think honestly, it depends on the position, because if they need somebody now, they will be hesitant. They will be hesitant. It may not rule you out, but they will be hesitant. And if they ruled you out, they're not going to say it's because you're pregnant. But they will be hesitant. And you just need to reassure them that you can still do the job. The thing about when you start a new job, and you're pregnant, for companies that have FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act, if you are pregnant and you start a job, you won't qualify. So your job won't be secure when you go out on maternity leave. So people who are pregnant, have been with the company for over a year, the company has 50 or more employees. So those are the scenarios. Been with the company over a year, has 50 more employees in a single location, and they go out on maternity leave, their job can be held for up to 12 weeks. Not pay for 12 weeks, but held for 12 weeks. And when they come back within these 12 weeks, they are guaranteed a position. It may not be the position they had, but they are guaranteed a same equivalent position. If you're pregnant going in, when you go out to have your baby, they're not going to hold your job for up to 12 weeks. So that's the difference. So that's the, unfortunately, that's the chance that you take. They might hold it for 6 weeks, if you're a really good employee, and maybe when you came, you were 3 months pregnant, so you was able to work and they get to know you for 6 months. But if you're already 6 months and you're only able to work 3 months, they are not guaranteed. They don't have to hold your job. So, but if you're offered the job, you would want to let them know that you are pregnant. If you ask your boss a question and they don't know the answer, should you go to their boss? That's the question. If you ask your boss a question and they don't know the answer, should you go to their boss? Now, when you ask your boss a question and they don't know, if they tell you, I don't know, and then that's it, then yes, go above them. If they say, I don't know, let me find out, I'll get back with you, then give them time to get back with you. You can say, okay, can you let me know by Friday? So you don't want to just be like, well, whenever. Ask them, when can they get back to you? So if your boss doesn't know the answer, it is okay to ask your boss's boss if your boss is not trying to answer it for you. If they say, I don't know, and walk off, then yes. If they say, I don't know the answer to that, but let me find out, then give them a chance to find out. Ask them, can we follow up on Friday for that? Can an interviewer ask my age? Or if I have children in an interview, can an interviewer ask my age, or if I have children in an interview? The answer to that is no. They should not be asking you your age. They should not be asking you, do you have children? Those are illegal questions that can be discriminated against you. So no one should be asking your age, and no one should be asking you if you have children.